explore things until you find the answer key. I'll take any questions, folks. Anyone, folks? Hand, digital hand, or otherwise?
Yeah,
Chesky, you want
hi.
to say something?
I have a question.
Please, who is that?
Chesky.
Yeah, go ahead, Chesky, sure. Chesky, you have you're in the control room. You can mute me. Go ahead.
So, maybe it's the therapist in me that's thinking about this, but this boy who wouldn't go to school, who didn't go to yeshiva for 3 weeks, it seems like there must have been more going on than just like failing a test. He's saying he was so bothered the fact that his Rebbe failed him and he wasn't understanding that he wasn't understanding what he was going through and he just wasn't getting that support. That was crushing him.
You're so spot on, Chesky. It's never one thing, right? It's never one thing. It's almost never one thing, right? Obviously, this kid has a low tolerance for frustration, right? He might be, again, this is the answer key.
Right.
I don't know this. What you're saying is so spot on. It's never one thing. So is it a personality thing? Does he have a low tolerance for frustration, right? Like you said, the average kid takes a I'm not Josh, but I mean, I had kids in my class that failed and didn't sit on their bed for 3 weeks. So Josh was one Nelson. He was a top kid. So I'm saying you're correct. And that's what we mean by the answer key. And you say it's not enough, but I just got a big piece of it now. In other words, if I can understand what was going on there, some of it, then hopefully, I can determine something else. Now, without knowing this, by the way, if someone called me and told me that my son says he refuses to go to yeshiva and he's staying on bed for 3 weeks, I would suspect, chas v'shalom, that there's some abuse there, perhaps. And that we know that that's right, Chesky? You're a therapist, that's a sign when children express fears.
Right.
That's a Maslow thing, right? That he doesn't have level 2, which is safety, which is torpedoing everything. So again, you could look at the same thing and see different things. My point in this is try to get as much information as you can. There's an educational piece to this, and there's a social emotional piece. That's why I said we're doing this week and the Maslow thing next week. Hopefully, once we see all these moving parts, we're able to get as much information as we can. The more of it, in other words, I told his parent to go to Dr. Heschel Fried. Dr. Heschel Fried is a genius in special ed, and he teaches in Stern College. I mean, he's an unbelievably bright, and he's been yelling for 30 years about the importance of teaching Gemara certain ways. A lot of my approach to Gemara came from him. So I encouraged him, take an evaluation. And I told him, it might not be this. Maybe this is just a distraction. But it's something to pursue. When we started the phone call, the parents didn't understand anything. It just made no sense to them. If I remember correctly, the parents were saying that this is very out of character for him. So again, it's never one thing, and it's confusing, but search. Don't get stuck making one assumption and sticking with it. Did I answer you?
Yeah, no, thank you, Robert.
Go, next.
We have Yonina.
Uh,
Yonina, you unmute yourself?
Hi there. Thank you. Yeah, just a quick question. It's not a question, like a comment. First of all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, loud and clear. Go.
Okay, I'm in a car, so, okay, good. So, one thought that I had, first of all, I appreciate teaching all these different aspects, but just what I wanted to put out a request more than a question is, I feel like for our kids, Sidurim look like that Gemara. And we have not yet shifted. I mean, even if it has English translation, it hasn't really gotten to that place of something that really helps them to connect. And especially when we have Yom Tovim and we expect them to sit for so many hours, I would love if one of Rabbi Horowitz's next projects that he takes on and leads would be to look at the sitter and see how can we make it, so that it has that level of interaction and thinking and creativity that we just don't have in our sitter. That makes it really hard for kids that are not that are not different types of learners. We just don't have that in our purpose system that I'm aware of.
You're absolutely right, and there are people who are working on some, aspect of this in terms of trying to figure this out. And the truth of the matter is, I'm going to be talking about religion also next week, faith and kids. The truth of the matter is, let's be honest, the tefillos were written a very long time ago in a language our American kids don't understand. And a lot of it is esoteric, talking about things, Hashiva Shoftena Kivarishona, like bring, it's so funny. One of the tefillah, well, we're going to talk about this next week. If you look at when you take out the Sefer Torah on the Shalosh Regalim, Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot, you say a Yiratzon there. You say Hashem, give us good health, and Parnasa, and like it's exactly what you would say is a tefillah that would speak to us. It's very complicated. Tefillah is a whole big thing. But you're right. I think identifying that makes you more sympathetic when you have a child who doesn't want to daven, right? So maybe we'll talk about that some more next week. But you're absolutely right. It's helpful to be honest about the barriers. It's helpful to be honest about the barriers. I didn't put it in the slide this week. I did a beginner Gemara class. If I do it, in this week 7. I identified 8 areas that are challenges with Gemara, that are all of them separate from each other. But thank you for bringing it up. Yes, maybe we'll talk about
Next
it
we have Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see me, but for example, my daughter is very needy. She's emotional.
You wanna blank yourself. You wanna turn your video off. So if you want to be more discreet, I don't care.
No.
Okay, go for it.
It's okay.
Okay.
She's the word type, and my husband's like that, so he relates very well to her. Excel. They call me the general, for a good reason.
They call who a general? I'm sorry?
Me. I'm the general in the family.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I have literally said to the kids, you're gonna clean your room either way, save everybody the Amos Nefesh, and just do it now because you're gonna clean your room.
And how does that go over?
So that's the problem. I like watching your presentation has like solidified for me what we kind of always knew, and now I'm just not sure how I can change what I'm doing because I so don't relate to it. To me, it just doesn't make sense. All this
Sarah,
I love you and I gotta hug you and make you feel good. I can hear it to a certain extent, but I don't really relate to it.
But you're cringing when you even say it, right?
Yeah,
Sarah, this is so helpful. I wouldn't say I'm not going to say you're halfway there. You're 3/4 of the way there. The fact that I'm not happy that you have this issue that you have to deal with, but knowing it, you probably have a couple of Excel kids that this might work for. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's actually, yeah.
And you probably have you might have less quarreling with them, right? Because you speak in a way that they, oh yeah, sure, ma. Well, my room clean, you got it, right? So you might want to lay off with if you have a teenager that has not that personality, wait till dad comes home. And I really mean this. I really mean this. So I'm so gratified. My class was worth it for you it was worth preparing and all of this and giving the class to hear what I'm hearing from you. Because this is what it's all about. When you become, intuitively, like that kid knew that something's
Right.
what?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you more than that. I'll tell you, it doesn't mean that you're not loving and caring. It's just different. For you, love would be that you put away, you're putting away money every month in your children's college account. Okay? Why are you laughing? How am I doing?
It's 100% accurate. Yeah.
Okay, so your son comes over and says, "Ma, you know, you know, or starts talking word with you, and like you feel like sandpaper going over your brain, and you know you're not familiar with these things." And when I talk to people, when people say like, I wish my dad would, be more emotive or whatever it is, they don't use those words, but and then I speak to dad, and dad says, "Love him? Are you kidding? This guy down the block, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you." All the kids have college loans, and they walk around in these ratty stuff. He says, "I bust my head. I'm working 3 jobs, and I'm putting away money for the school. They're gonna be able to, but they're not gonna have college loans. They're gonna have a down payment." Go tell that to a 7-year-old kid or a 17-year-old. To them, it's not that. So, Sarah, if you are aware of it and you find yourself smiling in the next 3 weeks when something like this comes up,
Okay, good.
give yourself an extra $5 in your account. Okay, but
Thank
this
you.
is it. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much.
I'm telling you, Sarah, this is what it's about. This is for me. That's like the laughing. For a comedian makes a joke and the people laugh. This is how I feel when I hear this. This is what it's all about. Because once if you remember, I don't know if you were in the previous classes, one thing I kept saying is, "Ani bina li gevura." I have wisdom. With wisdom comes strength. So you have the same issue now that you have to be, but you know what's going on at least. And you're saying, is there something wrong with me? Am I an ogre that people are looking at me like I'm saying these horrible? I just said, clean up your room. What do you want? I said, the room needs to be cleaned. What are they making me crazy for? She said, "Look, clean up your room, sweetheart." Like what? So now you know. Now you know. You'll figure it out. I have no doubt in my mind that you'll figure it out. And you know something? What might be helpful is you might explain it to your kids that are a little older. Tell them a little bit about what's going on. That might be helpful. And imagine if you sat down, let's say you have an adolescent that you're having some challenges with because of that. Maybe you sit down and you say, "Look, sweetheart, no, sweetheart, look, child number 3." No, you go and say, "Look, this is not how I roll. My mind is that." And I think that would be extremely helpful for the folks on the receiving end. Thank you, Sarah. You made my night. Thank you. Anybody else?
We have Siri.
To follow up,
My
to
Rebbe.
follow,
My Zoom
to
Rebbe.
follow up what I was asking about
Yes.
before, really what I followed in all the examples you brought is really the difference between good pedagogy and bad pedagogy. And that even if we want to say the Rebbe was the best Rebbe, but honestly, maybe it worked for a lot of kids to do it the basic, here's all the words, I'm going to tell it to you way. But if the kid really failed the same test 3 times in a row, that's not good teaching. So my question that comes out of that, so as a teacher, I like hearing these things because great, but like the parent side of me, when you find your child in a situation where there is bad pedagogy, and maybe it's just this year, so it's not about, let me switch
Pedagogy
schools.
means the way you're teaching, the nuts and bolts of how you're teaching. I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
And then I become the annoying parent who says, wouldn't it be better if we did it A, B, C, D, E, F, G way? And then it doesn't change. Where's the place of what a parent can do when faced with understanding that this is the way my child is not learning because of the learning style in which the material is being presented? And how do I better advocate for my child so that he or she can succeed?
So that really, you're absolutely spot on. And I would have loved to have done a session with this Rebbe, pulled him aside. And I'm sure he's a nice guy. He didn't go to school for this, right? He didn't learn this. But you're right. Sometimes you're in situations where the teacher might not have those, sometimes you might bring it to their attention, like Sarah picked up, I said, look, this is the way I do it. I have to think about it and explore. She'll get there. She'll get there. I worry about the ones who don't, who aren't self-aware. So it's true sometimes. And then that's as a parent, you analyze it. You say, would this teacher be able to, if I pointed it out, or if the school did some training, so you can have a talk with the principal and offer to help put some staff development together, or offer to help yourself. You can do this a number of ways. If you see it's not working and your child is in 3rd grade and you see a string of teachers coming that the child is not going to get what they need, then you go back to what I wrote earlier, that sometimes you have to do stuff that your friends and neighbors won't understand, right? If your child has needs that aren't being met, if you have a very creative child and they're doing everything by rote, then it's going to be like that for years, perhaps. So then you have to really think if it's right for your child, right? You would like to fix the school or help the teacher, but you're right, sometimes you can't. That's correct. It's sad. And look, I started teaching at 22 without any training, and I feel terrible that, that I shouldn't have been allowed to do that. I always say it. One of the reasons that I'm so passionate about doing staff development with Rabbeim and teachers and writing about this is because, I'd like to think I was a decent Rebbe, but there's a lot that I should have learned before I went into a classroom. So I agree with you 100%. But again, you have to be practical. You say, look, if this Rebbe, you might be able to point this out to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would do things differently. So you try and you see. If they're open to learning, great. If not, then you have to decide what to do with your child. It's not in this imperfect world. That's how it goes. Okay. Anybody else, folks?
Yeah.
Sure, my pleasure. Thanks again, Rebbe.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, Rabbi Horowitz, I think you owe us some stories. Maybe Ezer Kenegdo or.
You get to pick one because your wife's the. Hey, Chesky.
I'm taking notes.
Taylor was the Rebbe last week. She was in the control room when you were out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, be careful. She'll nudge you out if you're.
All right, no problem.
We'll vote.
Great job. Great job last week. I was listening.
So what would you like to hear? Ezer Kenegdo? Here's my take. So
running the Midos machine.
So Ezer Kenegdo, here's
whatever one, whatever one sounds better.
You pick one. You want a funny one or a Torah one?
Oh, funny always. Yeah.
Okay. So this was an incredible story. I was, let me see if I can find it in the slide. I was on a plane to Chicago, and this is a long time ago. And I was actually working. I was a scholar in residence there for Shabbos, and I was writing a paper on personality profiles. I was on the plane. It was winter time, and they asked me to, when we booked it, they asked me to come Thursday night. I said, I have young children. I'm not leaving until Friday morning. It's enough that I'm going away for Shabbos. I said, I'll take a 6 o'clock flight. If there's bad weather, I'll change my flight, whatever. Anyway, there was a snowstorm, unexpected to that degree. And I had a 6 a.m. flight, so we were stuck on the plane. So they announced that the airport's, after an hour or two, the airport's closed. And if anybody wants to stay, we'll try to de-ice you and get you out. If not, you can leave now. So they said, we're only opening the door once. So they opened the gate, some people went out. Being, my personality profile by now, I jumped into a business class seat right away. So at least I was comfortable. And I was sitting there writing my paper. Now I had nice, comfortable leg room and everything. Anyway, a couple of hours later, they closed the airport. I was in touch with the folks in Chicago. Now, you come on the outside, you see that line there? It was 3 times as long. Now, cabs before Uber, they drop off someone, they pick up someone, right? If there's nobody getting dropped off, if the airport's closed, there's no cabs around. So all of a sudden you had thousands of people streaming, a bunch of planes emptied out, and there were thousands of people streaming like one cab. That's mamish what it looked like. That wasn't a live picture. And the funny thing was, I spent 3-4 hours working on this personality profile thing, a project, and I started looking at I was out there and I saw how long this line was. I'm telling you, some of those guys, they probably defrosted the next spring, you know, they were just sitting there. And it was so funny because like, I stepped back and I said, Yankee, this is not going to work. So I cracked up because what happened is like 10 people at a time would come out, 15, 20 people. Like, where's the cab line? Here? Okay. And they would go to the back of the line. Here's the cab line. And every 15, 20th guy was a guy like me that looked around and said, what are you, crazy? And I was watching those people, like, see how they were, you know, they were doing all kinds of crazy things to try to get a lift. They were, like a guy would pull up with a name, whatever. So I said, okay, Yankee, you got to think out of the box. This is not working. I promise this is true. I'm not proud of it. Well, maybe I am. I went inside. I said, okay, here's the profile. Yankee, you need to find Yankee, you need to find somebody who's walking very slowly because they have a car waiting for them. And you need a guy with no luggage because his law firm, sent his Armani suit, you know, shipped it to the hotel so they could press it. So chas v'shalom, he shouldn't have to carry his suit. So I walked back inside and I sat there and I said, I'm looking for my guys and I'm going to follow them out to the car. So these two guys come walking along, chatting about whatever, the club, you know, whatever, they're just walking by. I got right behind them. I walked out got in the car. So the guy started, it was a limo. So I went in front of the limousine and I stood there like this. The guy was like, what are you doing? So I said, listen, I got to get home. I'll be glad to pay for a third of the ride. I said, you know, I live in Rockland County. It was in JFK. I said, drop me over the train. You know, I gotta go to the. So I said, get out of. Anyway, I said, listen to me. If you run me over, the cops are gonna come. You're gonna be here all day. I said, take me in. I'll pay for my third. So one of the two guys opens the door. He said, what's going on here? He says, this guy's making everybody crazy. He said this, and if I run him over, the guy says, ha ha, come on in, Rabbi. He took me to Penn Station. They dropped these guys off. And he didn't let me pay a penny, and he paid for the extra ride also. Anyway, my point of that was that if you got people that do this crazy kind of stuff, what are they doing in a classroom? So if your kids are like this, if your kid is the 15th kid, that's, you know, the 15th person that does crazy stuff, you really need to rethink. I'm not saying you shouldn't send them to school, but you know, it really, as I said last week, it depends how you deal with them in technology. It depends how you deal with them in everything. It's just part of understanding the answer key here. That someone like me will respond terribly if I'm pushed. So if somebody gives me an assignment to do, jihad, you know, teacher, you know, write 100 times, I won't do this, done. We're going to fight all year long. I'm serious. If you look at my nature now, I was sued by a sex offender in Israel, right? I don't know if you know, you don't know, whatever. I was sued for slander by a sex offender in Israel. So like, I like to think I'm a pretty nice guy, but you shove me, I'm not, it doesn't sit well with me. That's not how I roll. You know, we're in court for 5 years already. He's world famous now. So it's part of a personality package. So I'm saying, like, if you have a kid that has this nature and like they come home and react very poorly when a regular discipline thing happens, some kids have a truth beeper. You know, they can't take anybody that's not 100% yashristic. And so like these are all parts of answer keys. That's what I'm saying. Your kid comes home and says, this guy is a horrible, is a terrorist. All he does is gives out assignments or whatever, stuff like this. Or he has favorites in class. Listen carefully. That's my point. My point is those kids that are doing these bizarre things that might serve them well later in life sometimes, that's a personality profile that they're really born with. Okay, that was my story and the message. I see a hand. Anybody else, folks?
I just wanted to ask a question if I'm able
Yes.
to.
Oh, you got, hey, well, I'm sorry, he goes first. His wife's, you're going on your wife's
I don't know
coattails.
about the wife, but
Go
okay.
ahead.
I mean, I won't forget about her, but I'm just saying.
Go ahead.
But I mean, when Rabbi Horowitz was presenting the Word and the Excel in terms of telling your kid to clean up your room, right?
Right.
So the Word thing, okay, I already worked it out with my wife. I'm Word, she's Excel. Okay, we got that.
Oh, is
But-
that so? She knows all the Zoom rules. Go ahead,
But-
yeah.
Not 100% Excel, but closer to.
Right.
Go
So
ahead.
I'm saying, but like to me, like Excel just sounds like very obnoxious. Like maybe in this particular presentation, simply
Obviously.
because you're saying to someone, well, you want to do it the nice way, or you want to waste 15 minutes. Like with that kind of introduction, I don't see a kid like, being predisposed to want to clean up his room now. Like
Ask your wife.
you know what, you want
How
to
would your
waste
wife
25.
respond? How would your wife respond to that?
Mm.
No, obviously.
But
Bayla, how are we
that-
doing? Would you respond well to that?
I don't know. I'm not purely, but definitely I hear the logic of it. Okay, so if I
So
waste time writing, I'll do it.
nobody, right. Some people are 50-50. Some people are 70-30. Some people are 95-5. It's not, there's no formula for this. But you don't understand this, right? You don't understand this. So if you have a teacher that's teaching and interacting with the children like this in a very dry, rational way, it's going to make you crazy. And so if you're more tolerant, then you'll roll with it. If not, you won't. This is part of the equation. What I'm telling a parent to do, you parents, all of you, is if your child comes home and says, this teacher talks like a robot. There's no feeling, no inflection. And a kid next to you says, oh, it's great. No nonsense. She just comes in and tells us what we need to know. Your wife was nodding her head, just so you saw. Balaam, weren't you nodding your head? Right? You say, what do I need all this fluff for? What are you making me crazy for?
I do. I learn better with just facts. But
Of
as
course.
a teacher, I definitely fluff a lot.
And if I take 5 minutes to tell you the story of the Mizritcha Magid walking around with the thing, your brain is on fire. By the time I get to the halachas, you're just, you're twitching, right? So different strokes for different folks. At least if you're self-aware enough to realize that, I'm sorry, what's your first name, please? Binyamin, if you're self-aware enough to know that I'm not going to do well, if you have a new Rav in the shul, you move into a new neighborhood, and you go to the two shuls, and one of them is telling stories and, and doing all of this and very emotive and this, and the other one is very dry and, all right, Allah is this, Allah is this, Allah is that, you know which shul you belong in. And maybe your wife will go to the other shul. I'm saying, but it's all part of this. It's all part of this. This is part of the exploration. And I'll tell you the vart, if I may. Rashi says, Hashem tells Adam, I have an Ezer Kenegdo, a helper that's opposite you. Neged is opposite. So Rashi says, if he's Zocha, if the guy davens well, he'll have a wife who's a helper. It's one or the other. Either it's an Ezer or it's a Kenegdo. What's Rashi saying? Because usually you would say Etzlo, next to him. Etzlo, right? A co-pilot sits next to you, not opposite you. So since it says Kenegda means that they're quarreling. So either you're Zocha, if you behave yourself, you get an Ezer. If not, you get a Kenegda. I want to humbly say, I mean seriously with humility, I'd like to suggest perhaps a different interpretation to Rashi. Maybe an Ezer is a Kenegda. The real helper, if you run your household, you're going to run out to the grocery 6 times a day because you're not going to have any stuff. Your wife's going to make sure the trains run on time, right? So people that's what I said, I'm looking for my profile. My wife's profile and I together, it works well for us. But you have to get used to this, okay? I'm saying this is people with that Sarah's profile and your wife's profile. By the way, it's nothing to do with when men or women. It's just different. They think in much more concrete terms, and they think that this stuff is just lip service. It's just lip service. And I love you, I love you, I love you. I tell parents to say I love you anyway, but you know, because the kids don't appreciate it at that time. But that's it. That's my shot is that Ezer Kenegda is an Ezer, sometimes is a Kenegda, because you really do need two different personalities. Anybody else, folks?
Ellen,
Yes,
do you want to
please.
speak?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Ellen, and we'll call it a night. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Our son is in 9th grade, and he was never exceptional academically. It was sort of more average, but he's super smart. He could run circles around people in Stratego and go head to head against his 3rd grade Rebbe in chess. And whenever he had a teacher that really took him under his wing, he performed well. Now he's in 9th grade. He's in a school where he's exhibiting an attitude that I think is in about 20 to 30% of the students, like, this class doesn't matter for my final grade. I don't need to go. I don't need to participate. But I meanwhile wonder how much of it has to do with his academic lack of performance, something not gelling. And I'm wondering if it would be a good idea to get him evaluated.
Well, before getting a professional evaluation, you might want to, this is, if you remember I said about the listening, talk less, listen more, this is where it comes in, where you, instead of judging and coming in and saying, so why are you failing, right? Ask questions like, this is, I'm just encouraging you, this is what I do. Were there other teachers that you responded better to? And what do you think those attributes were? Why do you think you responded better to this teacher than to that teacher? Are there any times that this teacher really does? Are there any days that you come in and you really want to learn from this teacher, right? Or you find it a more pleasant experience? And you kind of tease it out and you have them start reflecting about it. And hopefully it will make sense to them. And then there with Sarah, that you hopefully, Ellen, your son will be where Sarah was a half hour ago. You know, saying, okay, I get it now. This teacher, you know, this teacher is just a motor, and this is not working for me. You know, some people are able to, I'm not going to make a value judgment, but take a look at our president, okay? I'm not going to make a value judgment. I'm going to leave that out. I happen to feel very passionate about this whole thing, but some people are able to say, look, I don't like the way he tweets. I don't like the way he does, but he's good for this, right? He says it's good for my business, or he's good for this, he's good for Israel, whatever. So he does this crazy stuff, big deal. And other people say, ugh, if you're like that, just get away from me, right? So you see the ability, some people can do this in school. I have a teacher that I don't like their personality, but it's a great science teacher, and I need to know science. They teach Gemara beautifully. So grab who? The guy's a creep? Okay, he's a creep, so what? So I won't be mishadach with him. I won't go golfing with him, but he's great giving over science to me. Bela would too probably, how we doing, Bela? That works for you? You're nodding your head. How about you? Binyamin?
No.
How would that work for you?
I would go for the
I'm sorry?
I would need a better personality, just like the Rav with the stories.
Right. Bela, how are we doing? Bela, would it bother you at all?
No, if the person taught well, I'd be okay.
There you go. There you go. So
Rabbi Israel Tauber had a whole long shtickle about this. He used to talk about how two diamonds were always like polishing each other, very similar.
Right. I mean, you're talking about personalities, different personalities.
Right.
I absolutely believe that this is part of Hashem's organic process for our growth. That we marry differently. I'm sorry? I absolutely believe it. And then you have teenagers. And you know, when you get later in life and you should be a little bit more mature, then Hashem gives you teenagers and you have to, that whole experience. I absolutely believe that. Then you have married kids. We have 5 beautiful, wonderful married kids. You learn to keep quiet. You know how difficult, you have any married kids, guys? Bela, you got married kids? But just wait. I mean, you know, you say maybe once a year, you say something, you know? I absolutely believe that, and you see people that are authoritarian, they usually never, chas v'shalom, they're brought to their knees by a teenager that taught humility the hard way. I absolutely believe that that the two of you, Baruch Hashem, living together with these different personalities, my wife and I, you learn to become a more empathetic person. That means when you walk in the street and you see somebody with that personality, you're not going to automatically say like, oh, well, oh, hey, I got one at home. So you learn to understand this. You become a Kol Shlami. You become a better person by it. I absolutely believe it. So, Ellen, you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. So, did I answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you.
So that's, again, part of the exploration process is having a real conversation and listen and have them try to figure out when does it work and when. This is what I do on the phone. Ellen, someone calls me from Cincinnati and tells me about my son hates my teacher. Teacher, I don't know anybody. So you start asking questions. Is it all the time? Are there any times that I tell the parents, hey, ask these questions. Sit down and listen. Don't walk in there with an angry face like, okay, I have your allowance for the next 6 years. Sit down and listen without discipline and just talk. Tell me, how is it working? Is there sometimes, do you remember any other teachers? Are there any things? I was asked, Belen, I was at a conference in Eretz Yisrael, and a guy came in he wanted us to reflect as principals how we, like that the kids are going to remember us for the rest of their lives. And he asked us some thoughts of elementary school, and I remember a teacher complimenting my shirt. I couldn't, I'm embarrassed to say, I didn't remember all the names of my rabbeim. But Mr. Brooks, my 6th grade teacher, I remember what he looked like. I remember where he was standing. I remember what shirt I was wearing. It was a long time ago. He came over and he said, Horowitz, nice shirt. He didn't even say my first name, but he connected with me in a way because that was meaningful to me. Baylor, you might have said, yeah, you like it. You don't like it. Who cares? Did you mark? He said it. I promise you, he made us do written reports. I should have hated him. He made us the book reports and he lost it in Puerto Rico. He did this twice to us over the year. Like he was a lazy bum, but he had great skills. He had great personality skills. And I remember him fondly. I wrote a report that he threw in the garbage, whatever, So I'm saying these things make up everything. If you walk away, it's not binary. It's not on or off. There's complexity here. There's always an answer key. I think if you walk away with that and you read a little bit and you study and you learn about it, I think you'll have so many more tools to be able to deal with your children. Next week, we're going to talk about social emotional stuff, a little more heavy topics, but also very important. I'd like to help you, give you skills in a different way to explore other dynamics in your homes. Guys, I hope you found this helpful. If you're interested in a Gemara class, I'll send an email about it. Just send to events@thebrightbeginnings that you're interested. If we have a few of you, enough who are interested, I'll be glad to do it the following Tuesday. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Think good thoughts. Keep thinking about parenting. Enjoy, guys. Be well. Thank you.
Yakov, thank you very
My
much.
greatest pleasure. Whoops. Hang on.
Okay.
I gotta stop recording.
Yeah.